I was walking home one night, and while I was walking along, I noticed some type of pop-up shop, place that I've never seen before. It had written on a sign, "Come in and take the free test and find out the real you and find yourself." I always used to hear my friends talking about different ways of finding themselves. Some used yoga meditation, others just liked to take long walks in the countryside. I could definitely do with being in tune with myself more, so I decided to walk in and see what it was all about. And if it is free, there's no hidden costs, well, what harm can it do? There was a man dressed like a doctor, and he greeted me with a big smile and said, "Welcome, sir. You have come to the right place if you are looking to find yourself." We exchanged pleasantries, and then he started the test. The thing was, he had covered my eyes with some kind of pair of goggles, and I could see weird shapes and colours, etc. And before I knew it, the test seemed to be over. I asked him, "Is that it? Do I need to answer any questions or anything?" He replied, "No, the test is done, and I hope you will be able to get in touch with yourself very soon and find yourself." I found it weird how he kept mentioning the term "find myself," but I thanked him and walked out of his place. As I was walking down the road, I noticed someone wearing the same jacket as me. I put that down to just some person having the same jacket as me. But things got very weird when the next two people I passed were wearing the same jacket. I couldn't understand how so many people could wear the same jacket as me. Then what I saw, I almost fainted with fear and shock and astonishment. Right in front of me, there were two people talking, but those two people were me. I froze on the spot, with my eyes fixed on two people who looked exactly like me. I thought back to what the man kept saying. He hoped I'd find myself. There were a group of people walking past me, and once again, they were all me. I ran back to where the man was, but when I got there, he had gone and there was no pop-up shop. I have explained to people how it had happened and how can they be me, but they say that I must be suffering from some delusion. They have now put me in an asylum, but I know I am not crazy. I know that whatever that guy did to me during the test has messed with me big time. I can't look at anybody without looking at myself. Things took a huge turn when I happened to look into a door and saw a doctor standing over a person wearing the exact same goggles I had worn for the test. I knew I wasn't crazy, and this is proof that something sinister is going on. Suddenly some guards caught me looking and handcuffed me. I hope and pray that whatever they have done to me will go away soon and I can get out of this hellhole, which no doubt is a base for whatever operation they are performing on people. And I wish I never, ever did that damn test. I was walking towards my car in a parking lot, and there were a few more cars in the parking lot, but no one else seemed to be around. That's what I thought, at least. As I was about to enter my car, I felt a presence behind me, and before I knew it, a person was behind me, threatening me with a knife. I screamed with horror, wondering was I about to be killed. The weird thing was, he didn't rob me or hurt me. He just ran away after wielding the knife in front of me. I got into my car and drove off fast, worried that he would be following me in a car. I reported it to the police afterwards, but the weirdest thing about it was, the next day when the sheriff asked me to call into the police station, they examined the CCTV footage of the timestamp the incident happened. I could see myself scream, but there was no man with any knife. The sheriff was asking me, was I wasting police time, and I could not believe my eyes that the man wasn't shown anywhere on the CCTV footage. Till this day, I can't understand. I know that I wasn't imagining it, and there was a madman threatening me with a knife that day in the parking lot. I work for a small newspaper company, and I usually just write about things happening in the community. One story though got me particularly interested, and it was about a woman who lived in filth. Her neighbours had been complaining about odd foul smells coming from her house. It isn't the type of story that I usually do, but it was different, and that's what got me interested. When I got to her house, I could clearly see from the front of the house how filthy it all was. The thought of going inside started to become a regrettable decision. I mean, first encounters count, right? And I didn't mean to be so judgmental straight away, but looking at her house, it gave off the sort of impression that this was a person who didn't look after herself that much. I also talked with some of the locals, and what they told me about her didn't give off a good judgment of character. This woman was clearly out of touch with everything around her. At the same time, I wanted to know more about her, and me, being a nosy person, I couldn't help but wanting to know more about her. Clearly, something had happened in her life to make her live like this. I had already called her to make sure she was okay with me looking into her life, and she agreed to show me her way of life and to explain to me why she lives the way she does. The filth had a stench, and I was surprised that she hadn't died from any bacteria, because it seemed like the right environment for bacteria and viruses to survive. Her mental state was questionable, and she had old cassette players and VHS players all over the place, which don't really exist anymore. When I asked her why she lived like this, all that she could tell me was that as long as filth smelled like the way it should, it was all good. Everything was a mess, and I don't know why, but it kind of all got me being grateful for all the things I had in my life. On the other hand, I am sure someone with OCD would love to clean every speck of this place, and with everything out of order, it told me that her life must have been out of control. Things were broken, and she survived on government benefits and some inheritance from her parents. I could hear small things moving around, and they must have been rats or some other animal. It's weird how animals can survive in such mess. I guess their immune system must be better than ours. Actually, maybe this woman's immune system might be amazing at this point because she has survived this long in this mess. She told me about her mother and father. She was brought up in a 5-bedroom house. She also had 2 younger siblings, And after she had told me that she had siblings, I quickly assumed that her siblings had wanted nothing to do with her, which I was gravely wrong about. I tried asking more questions about her upbringing, but all she told me was, just go to the house of my childhood and notice how the filth gives off an amazing aroma. I then went to her childhood home, and I could clearly see that it had been abandoned for many years, and Mother Nature had clearly took over the house. It's sad how houses begin to go under after they had been abandoned, and it reminded me of the only thing I had remembered in my sociology class before I changed courses to journalism. It's people that give meaning to buildings and materialistic things, not the object itself. I kicked the door down as I could clearly see that the front door was past its prime. From what the house looked like, I had expected odour and stench to hit my nose. But instead, I got to smell the most amazing aroma I had ever smelt in my life. I then started searching her childhood home for anything interesting to find. This woman's childhood home was exactly like her own house, and I don't know why, but I started to become irritated by this woman. In my generation, we are finding it difficult to even buy a home, and even if someone from my generation has managed to somehow buy a home, it's hard to keep it maintained. Yet this woman has managed to live in a big childhood home as well as having her own home, which clearly she had decided to neglect it. It's unfair, but I guess life is just unfair. It was all a mess, and I was beginning to find it all predictable with the neglect of having any care or pride in one's own life. Maybe her parents were abusive, and I wondered more about her siblings, because now I wanted to know why she was so alone in the world. We all need someone, no matter who we are, but then again, loneliness is a big problem in Western civilization, and we even have someone in the government whose main job is to tackle things like loneliness. Loneliness becomes more apparent as we get older, and this woman was old now, and with the inventions of social media and computer games, it's made loneliness even more stronger. The only good but odd thing about this woman's childhood home is the nice aroma and smell. I decided to follow the aroma because I couldn't resist it anymore. The aroma could be smelt the most from behind the sofas. And you know how in cartoons, when one cartoon character follows a pack of sweets, all lined up because it was being set up? That's what happened to me. When I looked behind the sofas, I gasped with horror and with utter disbelief, because I never thought that I would ever look upon something so disgusting and completely random. I saw 4 skeleton bones, still giving off a perfume-like scent. And this is not the type of smell you would think death could give off. I mean, with an amazing smell present, you would think something was full of life to give such a scent. I went back to see the woman, and I didn't call the police just yet because I wanted to know more, and I wanted her permission first of how to proceed with everything that I had just found. When I told this woman of filth, of what I had experienced in her childhood home, she started tearing up. Instead of calling the police, she just turned on the VHS player, and I started to watch something. Like an explanation video. At the same time, I also have to shamefully admit, finding all of this would have progressed my career in the journalism world. Even though I had just found something terrible, my career coming to my mind showed how I could have profited from this. Anyhow, the video told me more things about what was really going on. Hello, my name is Dr. Rogerson Peake. I have invented a pill that could make any dead person smell nice. When a body starts decomposing, it usually starts to smell. But with this pill, a decomposing body will be the most sweet-smelling thing you have ever smelt. The cassette player kept on playing. After watching the whole video, a few thoughts came to mind. Yes, the pill would give the dead person a bit more dignity by smelling nice. And it will also help people who deal with dead bodies, like in hospitals. But at the same time, this might be a great advantage for a murderer or serial killer. Imagine someone had murdered someone in your home, but the murdered person had this pill before being murdered. It could be some time before you notice something is off. Something smelling nice usually doesn't give an image of death or tell you that something is decomposing. It's always the nasty smell which makes us think something is off. Like when I was in this woman's childhood home, I honestly didn't think I would find something to be dead. Do you see how this might be an advantage for a serial killer or murderer? And I started to understand why this woman lived like the way she lived now for such a long time. I felt bad for being so judgmental or for thinking about my career gain of this whole story. I also started to glue together who those skeletons belonged to. From common sense, those skeletons behind the sofa in her childhood home must have been her 2 parents and 2 siblings. And I thought they had just abandoned her because of the way she had lived her life. Is someone trying to kill you? I asked this woman. My whole family took part in the experiment to eat the pill. We were struggling for money at the time, and they promised us that they would pay us lots of money to eat the pill. They weren't 100% honest with us, and none of us knew what the pill was made for exactly, she told me. She started crying a little bit, and the more I understood her story and why she lived the way she did, it was sad, just so sad. How we humans can be so unsympathetic or not care enough to understand someone but rather to judge and cast aside. After taking the pill, one midnight someone broke into my home and I was just a child back then, and this man had murdered my mother, father and both my siblings. I hid in a secret wall cupboard in my room which my father had built. For weeks this strange man who broke into my house observed my whole family's dead bodies. They all started to smell nice as they decomposed. I overheard his talk on the phone, and they wanted to use this pill in war and other scenarios where death is common, but they wanted to hide the deaths and murders. If something smells nice, no one would ever think something has died, she explained to me. She managed to escape when the strange man went for a smoke in her garden, and I couldn't believe what I had just been told. This story was not just a story, but probably one of the biggest scandals in the 21st century. I had to write about this and get this story out, and I phoned the police about the 4 skeletons in this woman's childhood home. Something had to be done, and we all know how shady the government can be and some of the things they can be capable of. This woman deserved justice. I hugged her and she pleaded me not to go to the police, but obviously I decided to go against her. I went back to my flat, and as soon as I entered, a beautiful scented aroma hit my nose. But I never sprayed anything inside my flat recently. I checked my whole flat and I found a dead body in my bathtub. The dead body had a note attached to it, which read, "Be wary of your steps, lad." I straight away drove to the woman's house, and this time, instead of the scent of filth hitting my nose, it was a perfume-like aroma, and I knew she had been murdered in her own living room. There was a note on her body which read, "We are watching, and the dead body in your flat has been taken now." And I couldn't believe it. I checked her childhood home, and everything inside had been taken, and no sign of police of any kind. They knew I would check on this woman after finding a dead body in her apartment, as well as her childhood home. I am being watched now. I love shopping. You might love shopping also. But what would you do if your shopping experience turned into a nightmare? I have a true story that was just that. It happened in a town in California called Oxnard. The town has a population of just over 200,000 people, and even though this town is the home of this horror story, it was ironically voted one of the safest cities in the United States of America back in 2013. The crime level is low and the income level is high. To add to that, it is a beautiful looking town. But no matter what town you go to, there are always places you'd want to watch out. There are good and bad people everywhere, I suppose. Back to what I told you at the start of this story, shopping. This particular shopping experience I am about to tell you about is far from your typical enjoyable experience. This is an account of a shopper at a huge mall which is the mecca of American consumerism, the place to everyone go to get basically anything they desire, whether it be a book, clothes, food or a toy. Toys will feature heavy in this story. Bear in mind this particular store is meant to be haunted, but also bear in mind that not every store is haunted, of course. The ghost that people talk about in this store is of a little girl of Mexican-American descent. She is said to like to play in the toy aisle. There is nothing strange about that. What kid doesn't? But what is strange is she is a ghost. Employees and patrons have seen her roam around in the girls' toys section, but sometimes she can be seen playing with the trucks as well. She doesn't come across as sinister or dangerous to people who spot her. She is meant to usually greet them with a ghoulish smile. Why people say ghoulish is because her eyes are milk white, but her entire body is covered in blood. One customer said the first time they saw her, they just about died and went up to Jesus. They thought it was some kid who had hurt themselves. When the person saw the girl disappear in front of her very eyes, she knew she was a ghost. But the girl never talks. Some people believe that the girl was murdered years and years ago in the field where the huge mall now stands. That is a rumour which was made in the circle of people that came across the girl. Whether it is true or not, they don't know. The people who see the girl are often greeted by her smile. One person who has seen the girl said it stands to reason that if she has been haunting that area for all these years, for ever trapped in the spirit and mentality of a little girl, she would find the sudden appearance of a bunch of toys around her to be a golden opportunity. As horrific as this story is, no one has exactly any cause to fear the ghost. The main reason for people being so disturbed is the sheer volume of blood on her is enough to freak people out. A former employee has said, "We just let her be mostly. She doesn't hurt anyone, at least so far, and there's really not much we could do about her if we wanted to." It's sad, you know, that little girl playing all alone in there in the toys with no friends or family to be with her. So yeah, we just let her be, and we hope that she never decides that she doesn't like us anymore. I used to love going to my local cinema, but I was so upset when I learned it was closing down. Just a few days before the closing date, I was so happy to learn that because of such high numbers of people going to the cinema, it decided to stay open. I was a very loyal customer, so one day I received a scroll like the Roman times, and written on it was, "We are happy to announce to you that you, being a loyal customer, we invite you to a showing of a very special movie. Please note that you are only permitted and no other person. Enjoy the movie." I was so excited. A few weeks ago I thought the cinema was closing. Now it's thriving, and there's queues out the door. On top of that, I just got an invitation to a really cool movie. I didn't know what it was. It was a secret until it showed, but I felt really appreciated being given the invitation. The movie was on Halloween night. I had planned to go to a party, but I no way could pass up on this offer. I arrived at the cinema at 7:30 on Halloween night, expecting a huge queue as always. But I was very surprised when there was no one in the queue, just one security man on the door who asked to see my invitation, and a girl inside at the box office. She smiled at me and said, "Good evening, sir. May I see your invitation?" I showed her the scroll, and she gestured with her hand towards screen 1 and said, "Screen 1, sir, enjoy the movie." I thanked her and excitedly went into the cinema. I looked around, and to my astonishment, there was no one else in the cinema, just empty seats. The last few weeks, there wasn't an empty seat in the place. I wondered should I go out to buy some popcorn, but just relaxed in my seat first. The door opened and another person came in. I don't know why, but I felt strange being in the cinema alone with this guy. There was some kind of strange negative energy of him. He walked up to the front seat of the cinema. I was down the back. The lights went off and a message appeared on the screen. It read, "We have invited you to this very special movie to show our appreciation for your help in helping this cinema thrive." All of a sudden, the guy ran up to me and I got such a fright, but it was just me being paranoid as he was just putting something in the bin behind me. Then he walked back to the front and sat down again. The title of the movie appeared on the screen. It read Locked In. I've never heard of this movie before and wondered what was it about. Suddenly the guy got up again and ran back, but luckily he passed me. I was relieved, until I realised he was standing by the door. I wondered what was he doing. Maybe he just didn't want to miss the start of the movie and was going to buy some popcorn. But then fear rose up inside me and my heart pounded in my chest. I could hear the thumping in my ears. He put a lock on the door, locking it. I thought of the name of the movie, Locked In. I didn't know what else to say but ask him what was going on. He looked at me with an evil, sinister stare. Relax. You were one of the main reasons this cinema is thriving now. I didn't understand until the movie started playing. It was the owner of the cinema on the screen. It was all beginning to get scarier and scarier. He started to speak. Welcome to the cinema, my good friend. Just a few short weeks ago, we were to close down because we weren't getting enough business. As you can see, the last few weeks we are thriving, and that is down to one thing. I practice black magic, you see. I had an amazing chance at saving this cinema, so I welcomed it with open arms. I made a pact with the devil. All he asked was one sacrifice of a very, very loyal customer every Halloween. And as long as I do this, well then, this cinema will have a roaring trade. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. The man behind me got out a huge knife and shouted, "Hail Satan!" I ran down to the fire exit, hoping it would be open, and thankfully it was. I ran straight to the police station and told them everything, but they didn't believe me, and I worry what will happen next Halloween. I haven't and wouldn't darken the door of that cinema ever again. My friend was visiting my house, and I was just popping out of the living room into the kitchen to make some coffee. While I was making the coffee, I heard my friend talking, but just put it down to him talking on the phone. But when I walked back into the living room, he told me he just met my younger sister, and he was speaking to her. I felt a shiver go up my spine and couldn't understand what he meant. I asked him, "Who are you speaking to?" He pointed at a photo of me and my sister. He could see I felt agitated and wasn't acting right. He asked me was I okay. I didn't know how to explain that my sister died last year, and she was my only sister. Now I know that I'm not paranoid when I think I hear her playing the violin at night.